Sorry about that, everyone. I was talking to a muted microphone. Good morning, everyone. How are you? This is Michael Gibbs, and I am the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Careers, and I'm here to help you build your cloud computing career. Maybe your goal is to get your first solution architect job. Maybe your goal is to get your first cloud architect job. Maybe your goal is to get your first enterprise architect job. Maybe your goal is to get your first cloud engineer job. And that's whatever it is. I want to help you get cloud hired in exactly the career that you desire. And training for your career and learning the skills of exactly your career and mastering your career are one of the keys to long-term career success. And here's my thing. I've been doing this thing now for over 25 years. I've been working in technology. And the reality is, I've been helping others get their first tech job or get promoted in tech for more than 2 decades, literally speaking, over 20 years. And I want to help you get your first cloud job. I want to help you get your first cloud architect job, cloud engineer job, solution architect job, enterprise architect job. I want to help you build your career. And that's why I'm here 3 times per week answering your questions to help you build your career. Because I know this. In the beginning, I didn't know what to do. Kept calling certification providers. I kept saying I needed this certification, this certification, this certification, this certification, this certification. In the end, I spent like $20,000, $30,000 on certifications and no one cared. And then I learned what it took to get hired. And I know what it took to get promoted. I've spent 20 years helping others do it. So that's why I'm here to really help you build your best career. Got some good news. We're going to be streaming also on Twitch today as well. So here's the thing. We know this. 1 is none, 2 is 1, and 3 is greater than 2. So we can't just talk on one video platform. We're going to be on more than 2, and we're real excited about Twitch. Yesterday, we had all kinds of fun on Twitch, and it was a great experience. We're going to be on YouTube and Twitch now. Now, I really do want to tell you the following. We have our How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar on Thursday next week. You can come to this webinar, and we will tell you exactly what you need to learn to get hired. Literally speaking, exactly what you need to learn to get hired. We will tell you how to leverage your life experience. We will tell you what the hiring managers dream about. We will cover the roles so you can learn exactly the skills for the cloud architect role, solution architect role. And if you're a cloud engineer, we love you too. You can ask us and we'll tell you the exact skills you need for the cloud engineer role. And we'll also tell you what needs to be on your resume, how to get your resume past the hiring manager. And we truly will tell you how to get hired, the things you need to learn. While we're at that, to try and help you get hired, we are running a LinkedIn and resume workshop. Here's the thing. We know how to make a resume where the people come to you. My students' biggest problem when they're in my training program is how do we tell the recruiters I'm not ready to be hired yet? Because so many of them keep reaching out to me. And the perfect resume and LinkedIn profile makes it that often you don't even need to apply for a job. My students get hired without applying for jobs because they're bombarded with people looking to hire them. And then my students have the expertise to get hired. So there's that. So LinkedIn webinar, LinkedIn and resume workshop, we made it as cheap as we possibly could price-wise so that everybody can afford it. Everybody can afford it. And along that line, I'm going to tell you this. I've asked my team to give us a 30% reduction, the highest reduction we could possibly do, and sustain it for as long as we can, which is another week or two, potentially a little longer, a little shorter. My team will determine that, not me. But I know inflation's getting big, and I want you to all earn more money so that inflation is meaningless to you. You've got plenty of money for anything you want, and I want you to live up to your potential. Get the job of your dreams, live the life of your dreams. So right now, we have a 30% discount on everything using coupon code potential. That means our cloud architect programs, our cloud engineer programs, our leadership programs, the tech career accelerator program, and even our interview program, the tech interview mastery program. All of that is currently 30% off. Lastly, follow us on LinkedIn. My team will post the link to my personal profile as well as our organization's profile. We will be posting a tremendous number of articles to help you with your interviews, for example. We are published in magazines at least several times per week, and we write articles and thought leadership pieces to help other people build the best careers. And we distribute that content on LinkedIn. So please follow us on LinkedIn. Now, at this point, I want to be able to help you build your career. So please, in the chat box, do the following. Ask your questions. And while we're at it, give me a hashtag cloud hired and also where you're from. And while we're doing that, I'm going to try and explain the difference between the engineer, the architect, and the admin person. And I'm going to use a different term, and we're going to get out of technology because I want to make it very simple. Imagine you wanted to create a farm-to-table environment of eggs in a deserted island that no one ever lived in before. And you had this deserted island, and you expected 1 million people to come live on this deserted island. But right now, it's like Gilligan's Island, the TV show. It's a beautiful island, and no one existed. Now, if you wanted to create a farm-to-table environment where the food is raised on a farm, the eggs are raised on a farm, and somehow they get to the actual restaurant, that's your cloud architect. So let's think about what that would take. It would take from someone at a very high level to say, we need chickens to lay the eggs. And so we'd need a farm with chickens. And then the architect would say, we need some people to work on the farm. And they'd plan that out, who needs to be there. The architect would think about what kind of machinery needs to be on the farm. And then the architect would say, how do we get the food to the restaurant? So then the architect would determine whether we need planes, trains, and automobiles. And then the architect would think, wait, we might need roads to be paved on this deserted island. So the architect would be planning that, or at least thinking about what that needs to look like. And then the architect would look at what the restaurant needs to look like, the kind of ovens that are in the restaurant, and how to make it beautiful. That's the architect. Now, I just talked about a lot of things. The engineer, the cloud engineer, is going to be thinking about, wait, we need a road. How do we make this road work? What's the traffic on the road? What's the speed of the traffic going to be? We going to have snow and winter and things? Is there going to be things to melt the snow? How do we make the road last longer? How do we build that road to be the best in the world? That's your engineers. So the architects dreams up the whole big picture. The architects are the super, super technical people that determine how to make sure it actually works. And then your admin people are the people that are digging the ditches, for example, and pushing the thing. Let's say they put cement down and somebody needs to flatten the cement. That's typically your admin people. So architects design it. The engineers get deep technical in terms of how do we build the stuff. And the admin people typically do the superficial introductory level things. So when I train people and we do so much on the how does it work? How does it benefit the business? What is the tech? That's because we're really focused on engineers and architects. And that's why sometimes I try to make these clear. But every one of these skills is important. And we need people to configure the things because otherwise we've got nothing. We need people to do the deep technology thinking because guess what? Without it, we've got nothing. And we need people to think big picture. But here's the thing. You can't be thinking about the whole thing as the architect and then planning each road and then also putting it together on your own. And that's why organizations have so much separation in these roles. So that's why it's all about determining exactly the role you want. I mean, truly figuring out what you want to do. And then once you get it, developing the skills and get laser-like focused on your career, and watch the magic happen for your career. It's going to be perfect. So please ask us your questions in the chat box. Tell me, I would like to be this. How can I get there? I would like to do this. How can I get there? I would like to do this. How can I get there? Because I really, really, really want to help you. And the better information I have, the better I can help you. So I'm seeing some people all over the world. I'm seeing some people in Houston and Nigeria and Arizona. This is really exciting. Cloud hired, Reverend Sama. Sobe, cloud hired. Gilbert, Anthony and Gilbert, cloud hired. Casio, how are you today? Maria S. Hello, everyone. Hey, Mike. I know you don't recommend a lot of associates, but what do you suggest to do with the AWS practitioner, associate, and professional? So here to win, you can see on our YouTube channel, we've got a video that says why you should never do the cloud practitioner exam unless there's an exception, and we've got some exceptions. So I would recommend if you wanted to do the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, you do one of two things. Either do the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate and then the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, and that's great. Or do the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional in one jump. Those two are great. Here to win, here's the problem. The problem is as follows. The problem is this. When somebody does the AWS Associate, and then somebody does the SysOps Associate, and then somebody does a DevOps Associate, and then someone does a Cloud Developer Associate, like some certification providers, and then you do the Certified Solution Architect Professional, we've got two major problems. Problem one, Opportunity cost. Average cloud architect earns about $150,000 a year. A good one easily earns double it. So let's just say $160,000 a year for the average cloud architect. If it takes someone 6 months of wasted time to do these other certifications in someone else's career, that's $80,000. If it takes them 9 months, which is more likely, they've lost $120,000 by learning the skills from someone else's job. Now, here to win, it's even worse than that. While someone is actually learning the skills for somebody else's job, they're not really learning the skills for their job. So here's ultimately what's going to happen. They're going to go in a job interview and they can't be hired because they don't have the skill. Or even worse, they get hired and they get paid less because there's a good pay range. And the pay range is based upon how good you are. So really, that's why I don't recommend a lot of associates. I hate to say this, and this is not my perception. Associate exams are tough. They're tough. And here's the reason why. I can make something simple tough. I can make something complicated tough. It's all how I make the test. So it takes a lot of oomph and work to go through these exams. It does. It really does. But from an employer perspective, we view, or most of us view, an associate level certification as kind of like kindergarten. And we view the professional as, or like the experts, as kind of like you graduated college. And when we need a college graduate and somebody has 5 associate certifications, it's like they went to kindergarten 5 times. Now, maybe we think that gives them a qualification of a first grader or a second grader, but that doesn't make them the college graduate that we're looking for. So that's why I always recommend not doing it. Not doing it. That's the reason. So train for your career and don't get certifications in other people's careers because it makes you look unfocused. And looking unfocused, wow, that really hurts your career. I remember seeing someone who was probably one of the smartest people I've ever interviewed in my life. And somebody brought him in for an interview. And I don't know how this person came in. And when I spoke to this person, we interviewed him for networking. I asked him a BGQ question, he didn't know it. An OSPF question, he didn't know it. An intermediate systems question, he didn't know it. I asked him a switching question, and he didn't know it. And then I had a theory. I had a theory that this guy was really smart because he seemed really smart. And I said, what do you know? And he said, I know these F5 load balancers. And I asked him how they worked, and wow, he was good. And then I asked him some questions. I said, what do you know is Linux? And I said, okay, where's the file on your system that if you didn't use DNS could help you resolve a name doing else? He's like, is this as the host? And I mean, he went on and he went on and he went on and he went. And I knew he was really great. And I remember saying to him, I'm so sorry. I would love to hire you, but I need a network engineer. And you know everything other than networking. And I said, if you want to be a network engineer, here's what you need to do. 6 months later, he was. And he was really happy. But the problem was he knew everything other than his career. So that's why I don't like doing multiple associates. It pretty much teaches you to be good at everybody else's job and not there. Now, in addition to the opportunity cost finance things that I just told you about, where the lost money, in addition to the damaging your brand, which gets people less likely to hire you, and if they do, they're willing to pay you less, every minute that you're spent doing an associate certification for somebody else's career, your smart competition is going to be learning, how do I master my career? How do I be the best architect? Or how do I be the best engineer? Or whatever it really is. Your competition is focused on how to be the best at your career, while you're focused on learning somebody else's skills. And not you in general, just you and the people that are doing this. And the person that's focused wins. So when you see an elite Olympic gymnast, they're not doing marathon running on the side. They're training for their Olympic gymnasts. Why in baseball can pitchers not hit the ball and miss the ball all the time? And why are they getting paid millions of dollars a year if they can't hit the ball? Because their job is to make sure the other person can't hit the ball. And they're darn good at it. So the people are willing to tolerate a lot of weaknesses in a lot of areas if you're really great at your job. So kind of keep it that way. Great question here to win. I'm glad you asked it. And everyone, please ask some questions. Chris, you can bring in the next one. Reverend Sama. Hey, Mike, what are the chances to get a part-time job or full-time job as a solution architect weeks after enrolling to your program while still studying? Reverend Sama, I don't think it's realistic for most people. Now, if you were a CCIE with networking and data center background and you were a network architect and all I needed to do was turn you into cloud architect, I could do that in a month, and I've done it multiple times. And I don't mean CCIE as in paper certification. I mean CCIE with work experience, because the CCIE was my intro to networking. I did that, and then after that, I started to get in after that, I started to get on the projects where I really had to learn. So here's what I like to say. When I did my CCNA, or my intro to networking certification, it seemed pretty easy. I felt like I knew it all. When I did my CCNP, which was the professional level certification, to me, it was like, you know what? This networking thing's big, but I understand a lot of it. And then when I did the CCIE and I went, well, and I was considered being an expert, I went, wow, there's so much I don't know. And then I spent the last 25 years working on it. So Reverend Sam, I think, 4 to 8 months would be more normal based upon what we see with our students. About 4 months if you've got a tech work background, and we've got a lot of people with a tech background, and about 8 months if you don't have a tech background. I think that's realistic, and I always want to basically be honest and ethical with our students. So I don't think the chances are that high within a few weeks. Like, I had a Nigerian student, Richard Afukar, that did it, but he took a technical account manager role, which is a little different than an architect role with AWS. I actually had a Delroy Bat who was in my program for 3 weeks, and he got a really good offer as a security engineer and did that. And he, mind you to that, he had 20 interviews where he couldn't get hired beforehand. Within 3 weeks, he got hired because we gave him the skills and the interview skills, the soft skills. And then he just got a really great cloud security architect job, but it took him a year. So it all depends on your background. I'd say 8 months is pretty typical for someone with a non-tech background. About 4 months, and I don't want to be, I don't want to overcommit, because I really want to know that everybody that gets into our program is truly successful, truly successful. And part of that is reasonable expectations. Reverend Sam, I want to make this pretty clear. A good cloud architect earns more than a physician or an attorney, in some cases by a lot more. And I know what it takes to come into a medical world. My sister went to law school. These are careers where it takes $250,000 to get started and have a lower salary, and it takes 7 years of training. We're able to get people there, typically speaking, for very low price, far cheaper than any other education, and far faster. 8 months or so is what I would say is more realistic. But we would love to work with you. We would truly love to help you get to the career goals of your path. And I know you mentioned solution architect before. We'd love to get you there, but I just want to be honest and ethical. I believe it'll take about 8 months if you've not worked in tech before, and about 4 months if you have, meaning if you've good, strong network and data center skills. Eugene Diaz. Hello, Mike. Big fan from Australia. I haven't been to Australia in a little while, but I used to love it. I used to go to Brisbane and Sydney and Victorian Province constantly. Did a lot of consulting over there. How much of the percentage of the data center, CCI data center, will teach me you have a fair level of knowledge of networking? Well, it all depends on the career you actually want. If you understand networking, what I mean is not just how to configure that, but how to architect it. How do I design my OSPF backbone to make sure that LSAs are constrained to which area? Where can I do my summarization along the way? When do I need to use a stub versus a not so stubby versus a totally stubby area, et cetera, et cetera? If that's your skills, knowing how to plan that, that's great. If you can do the same thing for BGP, that's great. Now, if you can do the same thing for your designing your subnet plan for the organization, this is what we're talking about. Big networking things, not really, how to configure the things, at least for these jobs. Now, the engineer, the cloud network engineer, will definitely need to do that. So I don't exactly know which career you're actually looking for. But if you're looking to be like a cloud network architect, the CCIE is really great. What I love about the CCIE is following. It's what I call a real certification, in that it's not the name of a service and how to configure that service. And the reason is this, going back to that farm to table with the chickens, and why the training needs to be different for engineers, architects, and admins. Let's say we're trying to take that chicken egg all the way to the table, which means here's what we need to do. We need to have a chicken farm. We have to have chickens. The chickens have to lay the eggs. We need to plan the roads. We need to plan the transportation. We need to plan the restaurant, etc. Now, training you in how to cook an omelet, it would not turn you into the architect that could design that whole thing and system, or it wouldn't train you to be an engineer that has to plan what that restaurant needs to be inside, what the plumbing needs to be, and the AC or HVAC stuff, and ventilation and ovens and tables. That's the deep engineering of it. So it depends on your career, but the CCIE data center is a good one, because they will ask you to do something very complicated, which means you're going to have to design in your head, comment to the architect and the engineer, and then they're going to make you build it, which is very heavy engineering. So it will teach you a lot. And so it really would. So that would get you the technical skills for the most part for this job. Now, the problem is, if you want to be an architect, it's still not enough. For the architect, you're going to need executive presence. You're going to need some leadership skills, some CXO relevancy, lots of business acumen, lots of ROI modeling, lots of negotiation skills, lots of sales skills, because an architect designs, presents, and sells. And so there's that. Now, you will have, if you have good networking background, good background, and good data center background. If you mix those with the business background, that's the perfect architect portfolio. But I'm not necessarily recommend anybody do a CCIE, and here's the reason why. If you can do it, it's great, and you can get a job, at least the network engineer job, with that all alone, because that's a hard certification to do. But when I did my CCIE, I spent $40,000 on it. And the reason it cost me $40,000 was as follows, and it's a lot cheaper now. You can do it for about $3,000 to $5,000. But the reason it was so hard and then is I had to read about 75,000 pages of reading to pass the CCIE. Now, it's a little easier now than it was then, but because now it's a one-day exam versus two. So I had to spend about 75,000 pages of reading, and I had to rent a CCIE router rack twice a week for $200 a day every weekend for 6 months. That got pretty expensive. And then I did buy a lot of training, and I did spend a lot of money on books too. So it was a big expensive thing for me. So it depends on what your goals are. Do you want to be the engineer in the data center? Yes, great. Or a cloud engineer? Yeah. Do you want to be a cloud architect? Well, at that point, how much benefit is it for the CCIE in the data center? I don't know. It is beneficial, and I love it. Love the motivation, and it will make you a deeply technical person. It really will. But if your goal is a longer career, your business acumen, your leadership skills, your sales skills, your executive presence, your emotional intelligence, your CXO relevancy, that'll impact your career more and can double your salary longer term. So that's the key, is what do you really want to be? And that will determine whether this is a good plan for you or not. What if you wanted to participate in the resume boot camp in August rather than September? Do I have an option for you? No, we don't normally do resume boot camps. We do it constantly for our students inside of our Cloud Architect Career Development Program. And if you were part of that program, it would be something we would always do. But no, this is just something we're doing one time. Don't know if we'll ever do it again. But it's a great question. Reverend Sama, do I recommend for you to get the SAA cert, then enroll in my program, or is it just okay? Reverend Sama, I'm a business executive and an architect, and I truly feel, and every customer we have to do an ROI model and an opportunity cost. Every minute that you're not working as a cloud architect, you're losing a lot of money. So if you spend 2 months of wasted time doing the certification before you get to me, and then I make you unlearn the things in your certification only to teach you again from a different perspective, then no, I definitely don't recommend you do that. I recommend you come and we train you from scratch, so that we teach you exactly what you need to know. And then these exams, Reverend Sam, are so basic and so easy. They're hard when you've taken a certification course, which is screen sharing and name of a service and how to configure it, and all you hear is blah, 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 and PowerPoint slides. There's no practice, and that makes it hard. But with us and our program, the people, because we teach it so well, because we understand it so well, because I've been an architect for 25 years. We make it simple and elegant for our customers to understand, and then our students do so well and pass these programs. I'd rather train you now and have you get that certification in the program. The certification will take you a tenth of the effort once you're actually properly trained. And here's what I believe: icing on the cake. So I view this as that your knowledge is what gets you hired. I'm going to make that very clear. Certifications don't get you hired. Your knowledge gets you hired. Your competency, your attitude, energy, enthusiasm, passion, leadership skills. These are the skills that get you hired by every stretch of the imagination. So I want you focusing on building the cake. Here's the cake. Here's the cake. All your skills to do the job. Now, when you're done the cake, you can buy the icing at the store to put on top of it. Maybe some sprinkles too, or something like that people do. The certification is the cake, but I don't believe you should ever put the icing on the cake until you've built the cake. So let's build the cake for you, the birthday cake. We'll make the cake and then do the certification. So I would rather train you sooner and get you out of my program sooner and hired sooner. Anthony Gonzalez, I'm rewatching your boot camps that you made for the AWS Solution Architect and Professional. What's the main difference that you focused on, because it seems like the same content? Oh, wow, Anthony, you got a good point here. So one or two of them that we did, I really tried to cover the content as it was for a certification. And then I started to realize that maybe I could just cover it and teach it the way people needed to know, for real. So over time, I've moved on to, hey, this is the stuff that's in a certification. Here's how you pass the certification, but here's what you really need to know. And that's the difference. Now, you may notice that our Certified Solutions Associate and Professional course looked a little similar. Anthony, there's a reason for that. Our AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate begins at the very beginning, and we pretty much teach the whole thing from beginning to Certified Solution Architect Professional and the same thing. And wait, Anthony, we actually have a book for passing the Certified Solution Architect Professional and the same thing. So the reason we're doing this is we're patterning 2 exams in once. We're teaching you the skills to be able to pass both. And then for the professional, it's just learning some additional specifics, reading some white papers and a practice exam. So that's why we do it. And that's why they all look the same thing, because I put extra into our associates, because I know the associate's not enough for anything. And I want people to take my associates. I wanted to have some knowledge, some oomph, some capability, some hireability, so I go much deeper. So excellent, excellent, excellent. Diraj, where does India stand in terms of cloud computing jobs? Great. I've got lots of students in India. They get hired all the time. There's a tremendous amount of them. My best friend Nagaraja actually works for a cloud provider over there. And there's a lot of cloud, and there's more and more and more development in India going computing than you can possibly imagine. Huge investment there. So great career in a great place that's doing so much career expansion and things like that. Christian, go to the next one. How can a person from a business administration background align their experience to be a successful cloud architect? Bucky, great example. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I've had recently a mental health worker get hired. I've had a food server from a restaurant get hired as a cloud architect. I've recently had someone that was selling shoes at Nordstrom get hired as a cloud architect. I've had students that were in college recently getting hired as cloud architects. And the real key is this. So, Bucky, you got a person from business background. What is a cloud architect? Someone who designs, presents, and sells to do the following. Design, presents, and sells to solve a business problem. So most cloud architects at the mid-level are 50% business, 50% tech. At the elite level, at the really high-paying skill level, where architects are 80% business and 20% tech. Yes, you heard me, 80% business and 20% tech. So now think about this. So what do we do in business? We ask the executive, what are your problems? Like a management consultant would do. What are your goals? What are, etc. Then, Bucky, what do we then do? We look at what we can do. We look at a financial statement. We look at a balance sheet. And when the executive says, currently we're at an 11% compound annual growth rate, we'd like to get to a 13% compound annual growth rate. We'd like to increase our sales by XYZ percent. Hey, there's this new minimum wage coming up. We need to be able to survive it. So which jobs can we eliminate through automation? What kind of robots can we hire? Hey, wait, there's a supply chain disruption. What kind of things that we can do? That's what our lives are as architects. And then from that, the next thing we realize, so there we are as an architect. And then we got to design a solution. So we determine what is the optimal end state. And then we think about how do we want the people to work to achieve these lofty goals. So then we design the business architecture. And then from there, we take that business architecture and figure out what technology. How many virtual machines do I need in AWS? How many virtual machines do I need in Azure? What kind of DNS that I can use that's redundant? Do I need one content delivery network or two content delivery networks? All this analysis and design and planning is to solve those business problems. And then, Bucky, so here we go. We met with the business, we come back. Now, the next thing we got to do, Bucky, is design it. I'm going to tell you right now, there's no John Rambo, unless you've seen the movie, and the architect space. It's a team thing. So the better you are at being able to go back to the business, getting the executives to give you people to help you design something, the better you are at building a presentation, the better you are at building a business case to show the customer the value of the solution is greater than its cost, the better you are at the job. So you'll be someone that's very easy to train and turn into a cloud architect because you're already doing 50, 60% of the job in most cases already. So now you understand why I love business. And that's why when people say, hey, Mike, should I get a master's degree in cloud? I say, no, but an MBA wouldn't be a bad idea. Now, I've gotten people cloud architect jobs that didn't graduate high school with associate degrees while they were still in college, but that is some exceptionally good experience. Especially if you're leading teams and things like that. Great question, Bucky. Gustavo, if we have a tech background after taking this course for the first time, what root classes do you recommend for your program to become a cloud architect? Well, Gustavo, here's the thing. Architects are not engineers. Engineers are deeply, deeply technical people. Architects are mostly business executives. Now, when we deal with people that have a very strong tech background, they need just as much training to be an architect as when we get someone who's coming from a business background, but they need different training. When I've got a business person that comes to me, I just need to teach them the tech. When I've got a tech person that comes to me, I need to get to teach them two things. One, what is architecture versus what is engineering? And they are worlds and worlds apart. I need to teach them my tech professionals not to be an engineer anymore because they can't, because if they do, they're going to miss things and the architecture will fall apart. So it's a little bit of unlearning some of the engineering. Now, those that have a tech background are advantaged because they know a little more tech. The key is, can they pull back and not do the engineering? And that's very challenging. Those with the tech background that we then need to train in sales skills, executive presence, leadership skills, emotional intelligence, ROI modeling, gravitas, having the oomph that people feel you when you walk in the room, negotiation skills, sales skills, executive communication skills, presentation skills, and writing skills, because we need to write differently. So that's what I recommend our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, because that's going to get you exactly there. Now, personally, I recommend the live if you can do it, because in the live classes, I'm going to do the following. Hey, Gustavo, tell me what this load balancer is, how does it work, and why I need it in this architecture. Gustavo, walk me through the architecture and sell it to me. Gustavo, okay, given these business requirements, what do we need to place here in this architecture? And I'll do that in class with you, and you'll get to explain it to me, and I'll be able to tell you what you need to do on your own. Now, if for some reason you couldn't have afforded our live version and you took the basic version, you're still going to be turning in videos, and we're going to be giving feedback on them also. But the key really is as follows. We won't have that personal attention as much of it, so both were good, and both will help you. but it's the Cloud Architect Career Development Program. If you can, I recommend the live version because I always like to talk to people. Always. And in the program, I get a chance to talk to people in class and really guide them. But in either case, you'll be highly successful. But it's the Cloud Architect Career Development Program live that I recommend if possible. If not, the other one would be good for you. And we'd love to work with you. Maria asked, what are the prerequisites for the CCIE exam? There are no prerequisites. See, here's the thing. Companies like Cisco that have expert exams know the following. Anybody can take the exam and pass it if they're smart enough and have enough knowledge. And whether you've done the CCNA and CCNP or, you were other people that just worked hard enough to pass it, great. Now, there is a little written exam for the CCIE, which is a pretty basic test, like a very nothing written exam. And then there's a lab exam, which is very detail-oriented and challenging. I would say this, it takes about 50,000 plus pages of reading in today's world. Not as bad as it used to be. I will tell you that it will require you to either do the following, either spend a fortune on routers and switches, or buy a good $2,000 or $3,000 server, and then run an EVE and G simulator on it, and then buy the software licenses, etc., that you would need to do. So it's not going to be cheap, but it's a very good certification. It is the deepest of all of them out there, and it's one that everybody recognizes and says, "Wow, you've done it." And I remember actually interviewing for a position, and the position was offered to me, and then it was pulled due to COVID, and it was an extremely high senior leadership position in one of the bigger cloud organizations. And I normally don't put certifications on my resume except for the CCIE and maybe one other. The rest, I want them to see me as the executive, not me as the techie. And one of them said, "Oh my God, you have the CCIE." They're like, "That's the one exam you can't fake your knowledge through." So yeah, we like that. And that's really the thing. So no prerequisites, but you got to work hard and you got to really work to pass that exam. It's not like an AWS certified solution architect professional. Here's the thing. With AWS certified solution architect professionals like this, CCIE is like this. It's just so deep. And to put it in context, we were able to put a full certified solution architect professional curriculum in a 450-page book. It's 50,000 pages for the CCIE. But Maria asks, it is a great certification. It's also an expensive certification. I think the exam is like $1,200 or something like that. But it's a great certification. And if your goal is to become a cloud engineer, it would be very, very helpful. As a cloud network engineer, it's a very strong one, very strong. And if your goal is to be a cloud architect, well, that really does boost your ability to get interviews because it's going to show that you most likely have some competency based upon that. Now, still on the interviews, depending upon what career it is, we don't get hired just on tech alone as architects. We get hired on tech and business. But the engineers, they get hired on tech and business too. Here's the thing. You got 2 engineers. And here's why I train so much business acumen for your engineers. You got an $80,000 engineer that's techie that likes to be locked in a closet and doesn't want to talk to anybody. And you've got a $200,000 engineer that likes to talk to people and share and work together with good levels of emotional intelligence and presence. So that's why I do what we do in training. But Maria asks, it's a great certification. When people ask about certifications, is one good to do? This is a good one to do. It really is. Anthony Gonzalez, if you wanted to become an enterprise architect, what is the pathway usually, and what is the time horizon starting with 0 cloud experience? Do most start as a cloud architect and work towards enterprise? Typically speaking, yes. So recently I've gotten a few people hired as enterprise architects through our cloud architect career development program. They usually have a good couple of years of architect experience, usually. In this case, one of them had no architect experience, but they did have some very good tech experience. And he was rock solid in his knowledge. And what we did is we taught him the soft skills, communication skills, executive presence, sales skills. He learned how to unthink like the engineer, and he got himself a brilliant cloud architect job. I recently got, I'm sorry, enterprise architect job, and I very recently got someone an enterprise architect job in Australia. Again, deep technology professional, and we needed to teach him how to unlearn being the deep techie and learn how to be more the architect, sales, presentations, etc. And wow, he just got a really great job too. So what I would say is, Anthony, become a cloud architect for a year or two. And in your transition plan, I want you to focus on just enough tech to get hired as the architect. And then sales skills to the roof, executive presence to the roof, leadership skills to the roof, business acumen. I want you constantly learning more things about business, learn about marketing, learn about sales, get really CXO relevant. Start learning, triggers to improve business. How do businesses increase revenue? How do they decrease expenses? How do they improve employee productivity? How do they reduce dairy fix? What kind of applications will make them better? What does this CRM application do? What does this ERP application do? And constantly think of ways to make the business better. That's an enterprise architect. And I can tell you, here's the difference. As an enterprise architect, now I'm going into a suit each day. And now I'm talking to the CEO, the CFO, and then I'm talking to the department heads all day, every day. And it's a great job. I loved it. Fantastic, fantastic job. Super high paying job for those that get it, and especially those with the right business skills. Excellent, excellent job. But that's the path. Become an architect first. Work for a year or two, and then try to migrate there. Migrate there by getting better business skills. Great question, Anthony. Okay, so actually, well, we can talk about that for another minute or so. So let's really talk about the difference of the architect roles. We have these people called technical architects. They're not architects at all. They're really engineers. And I had that role many years ago. And here's what a technical architect was in the beginning. I was an engineer. They loved me. And they couldn't pay me more as an engineer. So they called me a technical architect. And what did I do? All engineers. I was no architect at all. And then I became a solution architect. Here's what I did. I focused on 50% business, 50% tech, but it was only involved in our solutions. And that doesn't mean that, we weren't dealing with external applications, but it was our solutions. And then I became a cloud architect, and it was more the enterprise architect sort of role, where it was this cloud, this network, this, end-to-end design. And then at the enterprise architect world, it's all business, talking to the other architects, engineers, and putting the pieces and parts together. Chris, if you can go to the next one. Dinesh, can I get a job as a solution architect as a fresher? Of course you can. Watch some of the videos on our YouTube channel. Romanik Ivan Tamba was hired by AWS while he was still in college. Nice Cameroonian gentleman. Coyote, I believe he's Cameroonian as well, got hired by AWS right after he graduated college. Richard Afukar got a job. It was a technical account manager job, but he got hired by AWS. There's that. But then again, then we have people like Daniel Bosit, who didn't even complete high school, who we got recently hired as a cloud architect at JP Morgan Chase. Why do I say that on the education side? Don't get me wrong. He's one of the smartest people I've ever met, and he's one of the most capable people I've ever met. But I'm going to make it clear, you don't need a PhD for this. We had Delroy Batt last week, and he had no experience at all either. He was an EMT. And Delroy is one of the smartest, most motivated people you'll ever want to meet in your life. And he was recently hired with an associate degree with no experience as well. So yes, you can, but you can't do it via certification. You got to deal with it the right way. And that's learning all the skills for your job. And it's not just tech skills. It's leadership skills, sales skills, executive presence, emotional intelligence, ROI modeling, business acumen, CXO relevancy, negotiation skills, presentation skills, and sales skills. And then knowledge of how to design. But yes, you definitely can, Dinesh. We do it all the time, almost all the time. And, we just posted a link to Daniel and Delroy. They're as freshers as you get, with videos of Romanik Ivan Tamba. He interviewed with AWS, and let me tell you, what a fine young man. And I work with people with 20 years experience or zero experience. We get them jobs, it's different jobs, but you still get them solution architect or cloud jobs. But Romanik Ivan Tamba, he was working as a waiter while he was going to school full time, which I think was Georgia Tech. Really fine young man. And while he was in college, AWS interviewed him. And it was about 6 months before he graduated college, and they said, "We're hiring you." And he says to them, "I'm going to work here and I want to no matter what, but any chance you could let me finish college before I start? Because I really like to finish my degree. I've been working really hard to do it." And AWS waited for him 6 months to finish his degree for his first day. So yes, you can be, but you got to be incredible. You've got to be exceptional, and you can't be average. So I like to use this example, and I made a LinkedIn post today, and I want everybody to see it. Imagine two people, someone that's a cloud security architect with 25 years experience and a PhD and a CISSP and a CISM, and they run security for the world's biggest bank. And now I got a 12-year-old little girl with pigtails. She smiles. She's really cute. And in between watching cartoons, she's hacking into that bank. And she hacks into that bank. And she beats the guy with 25 years experience and a PhD and all the fancy certifications. Who am I hiring? The 12-year-old little girl. Can be a much better employee. She's more competent. She's better and more capable. You've been in cyber for the last 4 years. Would becoming a cloud engineer increase your salary? No. It depends on what you wanted to do. So Jackhammer 23, I know cloud security architects that are making $300,000 plus a year. I know security engineers that are making $200,000 a year. And I know really good IT security people making $250,000 plus per year, easily, based upon the roles they want. So the key is, it depends how good you are in security. Now, I also know cloud engineers that earn $200,000 a year as well. So the key is, it's what would you like to do, Jackhammer 23? That's really the key. What do you want to do? Now, here's where people's careers go wrong. They learn the wrong skills, and then they wonder what else they can do to earn more. And here's what it typically looks like. Someone that really knows cybersecurity, the kind of people that are going to earn more, are not the person that's going to configure the firewall. That's more security admin work. Now, the person that understands security, and what I mean by this is, how do we secure the enterprises? Where do we put our firewalls, our IDS, IPS systems? What kind of packet filtering are we using? What kind of host-based security are we using? What kind of identity and access strategies should the enterprise using? What kind of encryption strategies should the organization use? What is the security policy for the organization? What kind of training needs to be done for the employees in the organization? Do we need anti-phishing training? I'm sure we do. Do we need anti-social engineering training? Do we need to do data loss prevention, etc.? How all those pieces? That's a $250,000 security person. Likewise, we can get you there as a cloud engineer too, but it's about the right skills. Now, Jackhammer 23, I'm going to tell you something else. My manager told me many years ago. This changed my life, and it changed my coaching. I was kind of on the fence between that technical architect / regular architect role many years ago. I was a pre-sales engineer, and that's what we were doing. And I had a manager that I was in the middle of the CISSP boot camp, and I fell asleep. Sleep was pretty bad. Still passed it at the end of the 5 days of training, but fell asleep because I was so bored in there. Now, in the training, my manager pulled me aside, tapped me on the shoulder, and drags me to his office. So at this point, I'm expecting that I'm going to be, reprimanded for falling asleep in a boot camp that the company paid for. And I would have understood it and not been mad. And my manager says two things. "You're not having a lot of fun here, I can see him." I said, maybe. He's like, "Nope, you're not having a lot of fun here." And then he says, "Mike, you're different than the rest of the engineers here. So let me give you some advice." He says to me, "Do you know the difference between a $150,000 sales engineer like you and a $300,000 enterprise architect, or a $250,000 distinguished engineer?" And I was like, tell me. And he says, "Mike, it has absolutely nothing to do with you getting more technically competent. You're already focused. You've got a laser-like focus on your career." He said, "But you're peaked." And this was 20 years ago. He says, "What'll raise your salary is the impact you can make on your customers. He said, what's your ability to exercise influence? What's your ability to lead? What's your ability to sell? Your presentation skills, Mike, are really good, but they could be better. Mike, you speak like an engineer. You're not speaking in business terms. Mike, when you talk, you don't have the gravitas. You're not taking up space or exec presence. He says, you're not quite as CXO relevant as you'd like to be. He said, your negotiation skills, I heard you were in the meeting trying to do stuff, but don't talk. Next time there's a negotiation, please hide from, don't do that again. And he said, would you like to learn these skills? And I did. Guess what? I had the better job in about a year. And that's the thing. So really, 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 it's about mastering your career. Jackhammer 23, how does everybody tank their career in terms of earnings? They do two really critical mistakes. They don't learn the soft skills, communication skills that I'm talking about, which will get you paid more. And 90% of the people out there decided they need 50 million associate certifications. And instead of training on their job, they're learning this job and this job and this job and this job and this job. And in the end, they're only paid very little because they're not an expert at their job. Experts get paid a lot more than generalists. Kind of keep that in the back of your mind. But that's how you can maximize. Now, if you want to be a cloud engineer, I think it's a great job and you will love it. But if you like security, that's great too. The key is doing what you love. Dinesh, how to get a solution architect as a fresher? Well, you're going to need training, and either we could train you or you can train on your own. I'm going to tell you right now, if you train on your own, it's going to cost you about $50,000. If you train it with us, it's about it's about a single day's pay. The training that you're going to need is as follows: networking and data center training, which is not taught in any university, which means you're going to need to learn BGP in depth. You're also going to need to know some interior gateway protocols, such as intermediate systems, and OSPF. You're going to have to master IP addressing, subnetting, and supernetting, and route summarization, route aggregation. The next thing that you would need to do is learn WAN technologies, IPsec tunnels, SSL-based VPNs, private lines, Ethernet over MPLS, software-defined networking, and SASE. Then you'll need to understand switching, which includes spanning tree, rapid spanning tree, VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking, link aggregation groups, ether channel, port channel, that kind of thing, etc. From there, you're going to need to know one-to-one NAT, one-to-many NAT, static NAT, dynamic NAT, PAT, and DNS, DHCP, ARP-Proxy. So DNS, to really understand it from a solution architect perspective, that's about 10,000 pages of reading, or you could just do our course. Now, the next thing is you need to know the data center technologies, which are the cloud technologies. They're the same. So that means servers and server virtualization, containers and container orchestration, block storage, object storage, file storage. And I'm not talking about the nonsense taught in the Certified Solution Architect Professional. That's not knowledge on storage. I'm talking about going to the Dell EMC website and the IBM website and reading a couple hundred pages on these kind of storages so you can architect them. Next, you need to understand load balancers and load balancer technologies, and not what's covered in these certifications, but you can go to F5, read a couple hundred pages and know it. Then, what kind of databases should you use? When to use a relational database, a NoSQL database, how to design them, scale them, architect them, make them fail over across multiple clouds. Then you need to understand security and how you're going to lock systems down. So you need to understand next generation firewalls, intrusion detection, intrusion prevention systems, things like VPN concentrators, remote access systems, AAA systems such as Microsoft or identity and access management systems such as Microsoft Active Directory. You'll need to understand the business applications that use things, and then you need to learn digital transformation. So we cloud architects, solution architects don't touch the technology. We design the technology, present it, and sell it, which means you will need to develop exceptional communication skills, sales skills, leadership skills, emotional intelligence, executive presence, CXO relevancy, ROI modeling, business acumen, those kind of things. Do that, and you'll easily get hired, just like my people get hired all the time. And that's why I charge so little for it, because it cost me and my companies about $250,000 of training together to get me to be able to do what I do. And I know that's unaffordable for most. That's why we put this $50,000 course together and charge less than $1,000 with a discount. But that's how you could do it. Now, I've given you about 25 to 30,000 pages of reading and other courses that you could take, but you could just take ours, and most of our students are doing fantastic, getting hired all the time. Chris from my team was just working on a background check for a student just yesterday. because they had a job offer. Is the cloud architect the best role in cloud computing? When is the next step for this role in the career ladder? What is the best role? I don't know. What do you love to do? That's the best role. If you like to code, you might like to be a software engineer. If you like to sit behind the computer and build things, you would love the cloud engineer role. If you like to design, present, and sell, then this is a great role. Now, cloud architects can move into pretty much anything, and here's the reason why. We're 50% business executive and 50% technologist. So for we architects to move into a CIO role or a CT, like a chief information officer role or a chief technology officer role, or a VP of architecture, director of architecture, VP of engineering, etc., we get pulled in these roles all the time because of our leadership skills, because we spend so much time leading engineers and other people. These are the kind of roles that we typically find ourselves in after architecture. Or I know architects like me that just loved it, that will end up with these principal roles or enterprise architect roles where we get paid a VP salary and we just get to do what we love, which is design, present, and sell and transform businesses. So then again, I am a CEO, and yes, I've taken lots of executive roles and things too, but I love being an architect. For me, it's the greatest thing because I still get to talk about technology, I get to design the technology, and I get to transform businesses with it. But what's the rest role for you? I don't know. I've got one person I think is so deep technical that cloud engineering is so good for him, and he loves it. And he's super smart, and he always gives me guidance, feedback, and I'm thrilled to hear it from him. But that wouldn't make me happy. Designing, presenting, and selling makes me happy. But my friend Moses, I've been friends with him forever. I walk in his house. As soon as I get there, it's taking a photo of me. I walk in there, and he's changing the lights with his phone. He likes to be hands-on tech. He loves being an engineer. It's the best job in the world for him. So it's all based upon what would you like to do. Great question. Chris, do you want to bring in the next one? Reverend Sammer. Based upon my experience as the hiring manager, what's the salary range for SAs from Africa, Cameroon? You know, most of our Cameroonian people that we have quite a few that are getting hired are actually working in the US, UK, and they're getting very good six-figure plus jobs. I will tell you this. It'll be far, 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 far more than the average family income. And it'll be far, far, far more than the average lawyer's income. And it'll be more than a doctor's income by far. So it's going to be good, but it's not going to be great as other countries just yet, unless you get a remote position. And if you get a remote position, which you can do, especially as you get better, then, you know, then what you're talking about is a lot of money, because you'll be dealing with pretty much US, UK, kind of Japanese salaries, which can be quite high. Great question. Christian, go to the next one. Nelson, hey coach, what's the difference between an architect and a scrum master? Scrum master, and I don't exactly even know what it is because I've been an architect for 25 years and it's nothing even related to our world. I think a scrum master has to do with automation of software and quality processes, but I have no idea. A cloud architect designs, presents, and sells and transforms an end-to-end solution. I've got a lot of software people that have come in with Scrum Master certifications. We usually remove them from the resume because it's so unrelated to what we do, but I don't know enough intelligently to comment on a Scrum Master, because I really try to stay, I always try to advise people away from software development careers. And it's not that I don't like software development careers, Nelson. I do. I like software developers too, but the reality is I like to look at the supply and demand curve, and I like to look at positions where there's a huge need and a critical shortage of them in terms of career optimization. Because when there's a huge need and a low supply, salaries are high. And since everybody in college that takes tech learns how to code, and since so many people learn how to code from these video games, learning how to code, you know, there's no shortage of coding people or people from that skill set. And when the economy gets bad, Nelson, organizations take their high-paid coders in big countries like US and UK, and they find the lowest cost places they can outsource them to. So I don't do anything with software careers, not because I don't like, software information, because I don't think they're not good in a down economy, and I don't like the supply and demand curves. But I'm not an expert on what a Scrum Master is. I'm only an expert on architects and engineers. James T. Good morning. I understand you're a networking professional. Could you touch on the skills needed to be successful in security aspects? Yes, James T. I've got a lot of security background. What kind of security job would you like to know? And I'll happily answer you. So, do you want to be a security architect? Do you want to be a security engineer? Do you want to be a defensive security person? Do you want to be an offensive security person? What security career would you like? And then I can touch you on the skills. Because the skills for one of these careers is the exact opposite of another career. And if I don't know which one, it's kind of like, James, it's like going to the airport and you say, which plane should I get on, Mike? And I say, do you want to Greece? Do you want to go to Italy? Do you want to go to Turkey? Or do you want to go to Israel? And I picked these 5 countries, Egypt, because they're so close to each other. So I picked these countries intentionally. So offensive security, think of it as Greece. Defensive security, think of it as Turkey. So let me see if you have some more information for another question. Hi, Mike, you're coming from a cybersecurity background. Projects are essential to get hired. Is it true for architecture, and what would you recommend? So, James T, I've gotten a lot of people called security jobs and security jobs, and they've never had any background or projects on there. Delroy Bat's a good example. What they needed was competency, 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 and more competency. I've gotten a lot of people security jobs. No, they didn't have background projects at all. When it comes to architecture, can you show that you've designed, presented, and sells? That's the thing. So, here's the thing. Here's what is not security, will not help you. Get projects. If you wanted to be on an architect side, for example, since you said architecture, get rid of that stuff. Now, James T, if you've got all these tech projects on your resume, coded this, configured this firewall, that makes you not an architect. And nobody wants to hire you when you don't look like an architect. So the thing that you need to do is translate that. If you were configured a firewall, say you configured 2 brand new Palo Alto firewalls behind a network load balancer from F5. Okay, let's say you did that. That makes you look like an engineer and not a competent architect. By comparison, if you do the following: designed new firewall strategy to improve organizational security. After new firewall strategy had reduction in XYZ, that's how you look like an architect. Received Cybersecurity Engineer of the Quarter. Achieved quota, if you're a sales engineer, of 139%. Achieved Best Sales Engineer of the Quarter. So it's about what was the impact. Designed new training program for anti-phishing and trained 3,000 employees. After training 3,000 employees, the number of malware, security breaches, etc. was reduced from this percentage to this percentage. Designed new system that took logs from the intrusion detection prevention section, from the firewalls, from either the VPC flow logs or Cisco NetFlow logs, from the syslog files on all the servers. Use that and integrate it into an Apache Kafka, which then we post it into Tabulo so we can visualize what's going on in the security system in real time. That's the kind of stuff that shows you get hired. Now, James T, I'm going to tell you this. What other kind of tech things can you put on your resume? Well, I'll tell you what we do. Because everybody wants to know you've touched the tech, even though they don't ever want you to touch it. And my graduates never touch the tech, but they all want to know you've done it in the past. So we have our students do some basic AWS labs. That doesn't get them hired. Nobody's will. And then what else do we do? We're going to do some basic Azure labs. Again, that won't get them hired, but they can say to the employers they've done them. And then, James T, here's what you do. We have our students use our servers. And if you're not, the server that'll do this is going to cost you at least $2,000. Our students access these servers. And by the way, they're accessing our servers. And of course, included, the cost less than $700. That's $700 with a 30% off coupon. But on the server, set up server virtualization, build some containers, do some container orchestration, set up the Linux Apache MySQL PHP stack. Then while you're at it, build an Active Directory server and work with that to actually learn identity and access management. if you have firewalls and you're working with them, good. If not, build an IP tables firewall or a UFW firewall. Build like at least an SSL-based VPN concentrator to show your experience with and VPN into it. Build from file servers, and then build yourself a cloud. Build yourself a cloud, and then connect that cloud that you designed and built yourself to other clouds. Set up some cloud-based security. Talk about the end-to-end security strategy. Federate that with Active Directory. Add some single sign-on functionality. Add some rotating encryption keys to your cloud. Those are the kind of things that we do. The students that are part of our program do it under Go Cloud Careers, and it looks and feels a lot like a job. If you're not with us, then guess what? Create a research and development section on your resume and put those things. Look at what employers want. Here's what they want. Technical competency. They want someone they can trust. They want someone that knows what they know and knows what they don't know. They want someone that's energetic, enthusiastic, and passionate about the work. They want someone that raises the energy in the room, someone that's willing to go above and beyond, and a team player. So here, we got two sets of people. I configured this firewall. I designed and built my own cloud, which looks more competent, more energetic, enthusiastic, passionate. Which person's willing to go above and beyond? Those are the kind of projects you put down. Designed an OpenStack cloud for enterprise-wide computing for XYZ organization. These are the things that you do. There's 60 of you guys and only 27 likes. If you guys are having a good time, please hit the like button, subscribe, etc. Question Diaz, if I'm in the program, will I need the boot camp? And my original question was if the CCIE has both networking and data center design, or is it just one alone? Planning to enroll in a program a day. Oh, well, that's the thing, Bejan Diaz. There's the CCIE Enterprise, which is routing and switching. And there's one for the data center, which is more data center, which includes a little networking, but mostly networking. The key is neither one of these things is exactly focused on anything. All in all, I'd say CCIE data center is a little more relevant for the cloud, but I'd probably do the CCIE routing and switching. And or the enterprise, and here's the reason I would. The networking one is, unless you may have really good networking experience, but the one in networking, if you've got really good network experience, will be relatively easy for you to knock out. And the cloud is nothing more than a virtual network in a data center. So I like the CCIE networking one because that's really going to be a poof. It's going to get you right in there for those things that you need to know. And realize whatever you learn in a certification is not that actual relevant to the job. So the only reason we're really doing certifications is as follows. Get me that big high-paying interview. And then when it's like, how do we get hired? So our program teaches you how to get hired. I do love the CCIE network, the one for networking, enterprise they call it these days. Mine was called routing and switching. I love it also for data center. Just one. And here's the problem. You start doing too many certifications, you get into that position where you look like a techie and not an architect, and you want an architecture career. You want an engineering career, do both. Hello, Mike. After completing the Cloud Architect Career Development Program with you, is it possible that I get an internship placement with you while you wait to be hired? Yeah, sometimes it depends on how you do the job. Meaning, if you're a really great student, we create internships lots of times. Although our program itself is an actual internship that will look like an internship on your resume, so you won't need to. There are students that I placed on internships. There sure are. Many of them are not working for me. A lot of them, I've hired a lot of my interns. So yes, it's totally possible for us to do an internship, but we'll have to see what kind of student you are first, make sure you're actually following the program, doing the work. I have my students co-author books with me. For example, many of my students are right now collaborating to produce a Google Professional Cloud Architect, for example, and I do this for the following. This gives my students something good. But all my students are actually under an internship where they're a Cloud Architect Associate in my program. All of them is part of what they can do, and they can all list it on the resume, all of them. And we give our students Cloud Architect assignments, real ones. And that way, when our students apply, they have experience from our program, and they've got a list of things that actually works. But if you want to do more than that, yes, I can be arranged. I have 50 of my students also working with the Cloud Heroes Africa project that I'm really proud to be part of, where we do some basic cloud training in sub-Saharan Africa. I'm part of that, honestly. It made me so happy I was given the name Nuga for. I need to put it on my LinkedIn profile. I'm so honored for it. So, about 50 of my students and I actually teach in Cloud Heroes Africa, and they get to put that down because that's more of an internship as well, that they're an instructor in the cloud, and they're doing some incredible things. So yes, it's very possible to do an internship if you're in the program and doing all the right things. Reverend Sama, is it possible to pick up more than one solution architect job? No. And here's the reason, Reverend Sama. In many cases, it will also be illegal for you to have two. Most of the cloud architect jobs are from big organizations, and they have SEC requirements. And you'll be in certain positions where you'll know information that you couldn't exactly. So let's make this clear. Let's pretend that right now, AWS and Azure were to hire you right now at the same time. Now, when you're over at AWS, they're going to say, I want you to talk up to this petroleum company. Okay, so now you're talking to petroleum company A. And petroleum company A is telling you the weaknesses in their system. They're telling you about their business goals, business pain points, and business challenges. Now, the business company B sends you to meet the same client to address the same problem. And you can't, because now you've got a conflict of interest for two publicly traded companies. You have privileged information, which could cause the companies themselves literally be fined millions and billions of dollars, and you would be fired immediately. So no, you're typically under some form of a non-disclosure agreement. But here's the thing, Reverend Samuel, you won't need to. Why would you ever want to do two jobs? And I say this for this reason. When you become good at this job, really good at this job, there's almost an unlimited salary potential. I have a friend in India right now consulting for $100 US dollars per hour. Right now in India, where average people doing the job that he's doing are getting paid $15 an hour. But why is he doing so well? He's so good at what he does that he gets paid US wages. So I would rather you start with something basic, really master your job, and after you master your job, truly master your job, then the following. Get promoted in your job. And you don't need two jobs as an architect. No matter where you live, you'll be paid well enough to be very happy. Lars Fats, hi Mike, how can you skip the HR part and go straight to the recruiter? Well, you can take our LinkedIn and resume workshop. And here's why we do this. So there's all these resume writers out there, and they got their process to write a resume. And they're writing resumes for the average person, but they don't know the architect jobs. They don't know how to put what I call the bait in the water for the recruiters to do this. Now, Lars, if you attended my Tuesday night class, you would have heard Del Rabat say, hey, I didn't apply for jobs. As soon as Mike tweaked my resume, I got called by like 50 people. My biggest challenge was not getting there. I've got one student, Robert, who tells me he gets 15 plus interview requests per day. Now I know him. I'm typical, but he's mastered the LinkedIn things that we've taught them. I actually had to change my resume, Lars, because I had the words cloud architect in there. And by having that, I was getting multiple requests per day. And I had to change it to CEO, thought leader, technology mentor, etc., because I couldn't handle it. So when you have the right portfolio, and it's Robert Welch where he's there, he says, yes, I do. You can see him there when I mentioned 15 to 20, because he gets 10, 15, 20 every single day. So, but the key is when you look right and you look like an architect or an engineer based upon your career, and your resume is so focused, people are like, I need that person on my team. It's about building your brand. We built Robert an extremely strong cloud security brand, and he's being hammered until he finds the right job. So if you are the right thing, so let's say you wanted to hire a gymnast right now, Let's say you're a billionaire and you wanted to have a gymnast do a gymnastics demonstration for your party and you're willing to pay $1 million a year. Who would you go to? Maybe you go to Simone Biles. She's the world's greatest, right? First thing you think of, right? Or a Sean Johnson, or someone that you see as, wow, look at him. Wait, I need a boxer. Who's going to go to? I need the best football player of all time. I don't really know anything about football, but everybody keeps telling me this guy Tom Brady is pretty impressive. So if you're Tom Brady, the world's going to come to you. So the key is making yourself look like Tom Brady. And that's really taking your resume and making it look exactly like yours. Bashir, as a senior software engineer with 7 years work experience, what level should I be targeting at AWS if transitioning to a solution architect? Any specific skills to add? Bashir, there is no relationship between what people do in software development as they actually do to architecture. None, as in zero. But here's the great news. What you've done will prepare you for other things. It will give you insight into the type of business software that businesses use. So I'm going to make this really clear. An architect will never touch the technology. Almost never. We design, present, and sell. So software engineering, and I work with a lot of software engineers, and I retrain them and get them cloud architect jobs constantly. The first thing I have to do is I have to basically get the software engineering off of the resume. And what that means is I'm sure you've written applications. Now, instead of talking about coding them in Java, etc., we need to show that designed application, which includes sales performance by XYZ%, designed application that improved collaboration by XYZ%, designed application which improved the HR onboarding process by whatever. So that's what we need to do. First thing we need to do is take what you've done. Now, Bashir, the next thing to understand is, since we architects don't code, ever, coding is not a relevant skill for us at all. We design, present, and sell. Now, what is knowledge that's required for us are network and data center things. And why? What do we do as an architect? We go to the data center. We take the virtual machines, the containers, the firewalls, the storage, the databases, the business applications, and we move them to what? Another data center called the cloud. Now, you can't move what you don't know. So we're talking about networking and data center knowledge, BGP, interior gateway protocols such as OSPF and intermediate systems. We're talking of knowledge of what kind of WAN technologies to use, IPsec tunnels, SSL-based VPNs, private lines, Ethernet over MPLS, software-defined networking, and SASE. And then next to bliss, what we're talking about is switching, which means VLANs, VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking, spanning tree, rapid spanning tree, port channel, ether channel, link aggregation groups, etc. And then we're talking about IP addressing, subnetting, and supernetting. Again, none of this is related to software. And then we're talking about the following. We're talking about, what do you call it? So we're talking about ARP and proxy ARP and DNS and DHCP. That's some of the networking things that you need to know. And then you need to understand servers and server virtualization and containers and container orchestration, block storage, object storage, and file storage. Then you really need to know a lot about load balancers, how to design them, whether you use application load balancer, network load balancer, when to use both, how to tune them for performance, etc. And then you need to understand, what kind of databases to use when, how do you scale a relational database, how do you scale a NoSQL database, for example, for those kind of things. What kind of firewalls do you need? Could you use the cloud native one, which you probably can, or you're going to need to use something such as a next generation firewall? What kind of intrusion detection prevention strategies do you need? What kind of applications will change the business? And then, Bashir, because it's a sales job, design, present, and sell, you'll need to develop executive presence skills, emotional intelligence skills, leadership skills, ROI modeling skills, business acumen skills, CXO relevancy, executive presence, executive communication skills, and leadership skills, and of course, negotiation skills and good interview skills. That's what you need to do to transition. Robert Wells, good morning, Mike. What a day you had yesterday. You had 2 readers invite me to apply for a job, JBell and Microsoft. Fantastic, Robert. I knew a couple people called you in the morning, but Microsoft, I'm pretty excited. And Jabil is another wonderful company. You want to become a cloud or solutions architect. Can you highlight the knowledge needed for data center design? Yeah, absolutely. And again, I like the CCDE, but it's not going to be enough. So in the CCDE, what they're going to teach you is this following: the deep technical design. Deep, 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 which is great. But what are they not going to teach you? They're not going to teach the architecture piece. Wait, architecture exam without the architecture. Well, let me explain what I mean by this. There's a technical architecture, and then there's a transformational architecture, and they're not the same thing. The transformation architecture, which is really what you want to do, is going to be as follows. Mrs. Customer, what is your business problem? Your business pain points. Okay, what problem do we need to solve? How do we transform your business? That is the critical skill for the architect. How do we transform your business? Which means the business skills are every bit as important, if not more important, than any of the tech skills. So, James White, you can do it two ways. I'm going to tell you what the low-paid architects do, and I'm going to tell you what the high-paid architects do. And the pay difference can be hundreds of thousands of dollars per year between the high-paid architects and the low-paid architects. The high-paid architects focus on having enough technical skills and being good enough technically to be able to meet with that client, and when they get out of that client, understand what are those business requirements, real deep business requirements, and then go back to their organization and reach out to the executive vice presidents and the senior vice presidents and say, I need this cloud architect. I need these 3 cloud security architects, these 3 cloud network architects, this big data architect, this IAM architect, 5 DevOps engineers, 5 cloud engineers, and some network engineers and some security engineers. And together, James White, the high-paid architect, brings them in the room, and they coordinate the design between all of the executives. And they then understand how to write that up in terms of something for the technical people, the executive people, and the managed people. And then the architect, the good one, the high-paid one, goes back to that customer, presents it, and tries to sell it. That's the high-paid architect. The low-paid architect is going to be the CCIE. This was me earlier in my career. I thought I could design it on my own. So I went in there and I got whatever requirements I could get. And then I got back there and I thought I was the technical smarty pants. I could do it all, right? So I was trying to design this, and this. Meanwhile, I had a buddy that was earning twice as much as me, who knew nothing about the tech, and he was more effective than me. Because my buddy was so good at building teams of people and then bringing the requirements and documenting, presenting it, and sell back to the customer. And I went, oh my God. So the knowledge of the data centers, how do you design it? Hey, where do I put my load balancers? What kind of servers do I need? How do I make these servers scale? How do I tune the performance of this really poor block storage in the storage area network, even though in your certification they tell you it's fast? Hey, what kind of security people do we need? Security things need to go in here. Well, how do we tune this network? How do we tune this thing? Those are the kind of things that we do as architects. How do we make it better? So, James, I want you to truly understand, if we get too much tech, we can't drive transformation. So if you go to a hairdresser, they're going to tell you need a hairstyle. If you go to a manicurist, they're going to want to do your nails, guy, girl, or anywhere in between. If you go to a pet shop, they're going to tell you need a cat or a dog. So there's that. So where do you really want to be long term? Do you want to be the person that drives the transformation? In order to drive the transformation, you must understand what those executives are telling you. Because if you don't understand what those executives are telling you, you're not driving any transformation. So even the CCDE is kind of more of a design engineer certification. So I love this CCDE. I love it. But where is your goal and what do you want it to be? If you want to be the technical architect, yes, do the CCDE. It is a magical certification. And I love it. I really do. But if your goal is actually to be a high-paid architect with a lot more career mobility, it's too much tech. You don't need that much tech. You need 3/4 of that tech. And what you truly need instead is the transformation knowledge. And as an architect, it'd probably be better for you to build your transformation knowledge than your deeper technical knowledge. There's a saying in Africa that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So I want you to remember this, and I'm going to end on this. The ability to be an architect is your ability to influence others. Can you build a 50-person team where each person has 20 years experience? Because if you can, you've got 1,000 years experience on your team. Or can you be the smartest guy in the room and do it yourself? I want a team. What's the highest salary you've seen? I've seen plenty of $500,000 architects, plenty of them. To put it into context, back in 1999, 2000, CCIEs like me were billing ourselves out for $110 an hour, and we were getting 60 hours a week. So that was close to $6,500 a week, which was over $300,000 a year 20 years ago. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $600,000 or $700,000 per year. I know lots of people that have gotten $500,000 salaries and really impressive sign-on bonuses. I know people that have worked at big banks that get a basic salary and then huge bonuses at the end of the year. They're beyond things, and with these huge bonuses, they buy houses, or boats or things like that. So it's really about how do you plan your career. I'm going to tell you this right now. If you try to be a jack of all trades and a master of none, low pay. If you try to be a thought leader, yesterday. Now, it's kind of interesting. We've got Robert Welch, who just spoke to Deloitte yesterday, and this is what we're seeing in reality. And they told him, look, we own an 80% business executive and a 20% techie. So that determines what your salary will be. How much? And another one of my students recently got hired by a local global bank, and they told him, I need a sales guy in a lab coat. So I want you to understand that that's the highest salary. And it's a cloud architect or an enterprise architect. But the reality is, I know people making millions and millions of dollars a year in sales and being executives. Before they were EMC, EMC used to have a thing with their sales reps. They can only give out $100,000 in the sales check. And what the engineers or the sales reps would tell us is they'd ask each other, how many checks did you get this month? And some people would get 3 checks for the month. It could be $300,000 that month. So I've met a lot of people that have made a lot of money in tech. Plus, a lot of these organizations give you stock, restricted stock units, etc., or even stock options. And I've seen a lot of people make millions of dollars on that per year on stock in the right company. So it's about being good at your careers, being great at your careers and not being great at somebody else's. Salary is never a problem if you're an expert at what you do. But here's what you don't want to be. I come from an internal medicine background 25 years ago. An internal medicine person works 16 hours a day and gets paid $200,000 a year after they've got $250,000 of education or debts. I know another guy real well. He's an orthopedic surgeon in Colorado. This guy did nothing other than knees. The world's best professional athletes go to him. The world's greatest, everybody that can afford it goes to him. He doesn't even take insurance, it's cash. And he does like $20,000 knee surgeries per day, works 8 hours a day, and earns $100,000 a day, $500,000 a week. Why? Because he's the best at knees out there, and he's built a brand on it. So where do you want to be? And you want to raise your salary, become an expert on a business vertical, become an expert in an area of architecture, become an expert in digital transformation, and your things will work itself out. But sales can pay incredibly well because they're commission-based if you're good at your job. Leadership can pay a lot. So there's plenty of ways to make money. It's just about being good at what you do and knowing exactly what you want to do and convincing the team that you're hiring you why you can solve their problems and you're better than the rest. Hence, sales skills, communication skills, leadership skills, executive presence, emotional intelligence, interview skills are critical for this factor. Because when you interview, they can make $100,000 difference based upon how much they like you and how much your leadership skills are. So maximize those. Leon, how different is a cloud architect versus a security architect? Very different. Is one path longer to achieve than the other? No. Delray Bat, we recently got a cloud security architect job. Never worked in tech, so it did take them about 12 months. Got lots of cloud architect people coming in that have never worked in tech before either, that are taking between 8 to 12 months too, and they're doing great. And it's better if they're 40 or 50 than if they're younger. Because they're 40 and 50, they've got some gray hairs potentially and some life's wins, which makes it easier to get hired. But we're doing it for young people all the time too. And granted, they take more time, effort, and work, but it can still be done. With young people, we play to our our level of energy, enthusiasm, passion, our ability to learn. And when we deal with older people that are 50 like me or close to 50, what we're dealing with is our wisdom and life experience. So these are the kind of things that we're really talking about in terms of maximizing your career. So now that you know this, it's what you want to do. The cloud architect designs the end-to-end solution. You know, networking, compute, storage, databases, business applications, etc. The security architect designs the security only for the enterprise. One person does everything, one person does just the security. So it's a module. That's the main difference. One path is not longer to achieve than the other. It's what your focus is. If you've got to run 1,000 meters, it only takes you a certain amount of time to run 1,000 meters. Now, if you run that 1,000 meters straight, pretty fast, right? But if you do the 1,000 meters zigzag, you know, that 1,000 meters can turn into 5,000 meters and take you a lot longer. Great question. Mr. Wynn, can you talk about the type of cloud security architect? Well, generally speaking, security is divided into 4. Ethical hacking, which is basically penetration testing or figuring out how to break into systems. And these people have to be experts at breaking in. These are usually more engineering roles, but they can also be found in architecture roles. So that's called offensive security. How do you break in? Mastering social engineering, etc., and all the tactics, the hacking, etc. Now, a defensive security architect is generally defining the defensive positions. How do we secure the enterprise? Do we need, how many firewalls do we need? What our intrusion detection things need to be? What's our security policy need to be? What kind of encryption strategy do we need to have in place? That's more of a defensive security architect. So they're really your 2 main things. It's whether you're offensive or defensive. In either case, you're focusing on the security, but one's more based about, can I hack into the systems? Or hire a team of hackers to hack into the system? How do we get into the system? So Mr. or Mrs. Customer, here's how you secure your systems. Or it's the how do I protect from the evil hacker? Both sides of the coin. They're your 2 main security roles. And that's a great question, Wynn. Please feel free, Wynn, to ask subsequent questions to that. You've worked for 15 years in help desk and now, and you have a computer science degree while doing that. Can my program help you find direction working in the cloud? Of course it could. Easily, we could easily get you a cloud architect or cloud engineer job based upon what you need. It's a matter of giving you the right training, changing your brand, and we do it all the time. All the time, we could easily do it. Like I said, we do it with people that have no background. We can easily do it with your background. Easily. Easily. And we'd love to.
I just thought this was funny. There's a follow-up to this.
Scrum Master coordinates teams, schedules meetings, facilitates reductions, and removes obstacles from the development team. That's the key, the development team. Herds cats, yeah, exactly like a program manager would do. So yeah, Scrum Master herds cats, developer teams, the basic. Yeah, that's exactly what we're telling with most of it. So we are not someone that is a program manager of software development. We are someone that is an executive that deals with the customer, asks about their business goals, business challenges, business pain points, then leads, not manage, leads, and gets people to want to work on the project, brings out the best in them. We're not so task-oriented, we're project-oriented, and the project is until the design is done. And once it's designed, we're gone. Kwatanga. Okay. Hi, Mike. You've completed a certification training and obtained the AWS CSA certification. What do you recommend I do to get hired? So I need to know which career you want. Because if it's a cloud engineer, there's certain things that you'll need to do, and 90% of them are not there. If it's a cloud architect, you're there. I tell my students that the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional is approximately 5% of what you need to get a job. The other 95% is the cake. Now, the cake is going to be different for the cloud architect job versus the cloud admin job versus the cloud engineer job versus the cloud developer job versus the cloud program manager job. So the question is, certifications may get you an interview, but no certifications will get anybody hired. I will tell you what it takes to get hired, but I need to know which job you want to be hired for. Let me know that and I will answer it. Because otherwise, I could be giving you advice for the wrong career, and I want you to go to the straight line as opposed to a zigzag line. Chris, you want to go to the next time while we wait? What is your advice for someone who doesn't know what he likes or what he wants to be in tech? There are many people who want to change careers to tech, just looking for the high demand. I would strongly recommend that you figure it out, because there's thousands of different jobs on tech, thousands of them. And you can spend years learning the wrong skills. And if you spend years learning the wrong skills, two things are going to happen. You're going to have to unlearn those skills to be able to do the job you want, because they're going to change the way you think. And not just that, they're going to damage your resume by making you look like you're somebody else. So I'd strongly encourage you to figure out what you want to do. I also don't think just because jobs are in high demand or high paying is a good enough reason to do it. And I say this for the following reason. If you really want to be good at it, you're going to have to master your career, which means you're going to have to love it. I'm someone that went into healthcare because it was high demand. So I became an internal medicine nurse practitioner, went to school for 7 years, had my own office, and went, ugh. I like taking care of sick people, but I don't like these 14-hour days for low pay. Ugh. I got to fight with insurance companies all day long just to get my patients' medications covered. Ugh. It wasn't a job I enjoyed. So for me, I went to school for 7 years, spent a fortune to learn something I didn't like. Then when it came to tech, and people were like, what do you do? And I'm like, I used to practice internal medicine, but that taught me how to communicate with people, how to lead people into taking better care of themselves, how to sell people into take a prescription that they didn't want to take that was necessary to save their life, how to ask a customer questions, what are your challenges, pain points, goals, so I can design a solution. And I learned how to be more emotionally intelligent in this job and communicate better. And oh, by the way, my job in medicine helped me become a great architect, because here's what medicine is. Medicine is a patient comes in, they've got a chief complaint. I ask them some questions, I examine them, make a diagnosis and a plan. And hey, first hiring manager, as an architect, I've been doing this job for years. I have to architect people's health. Someone comes into me and they say my throat hurts, and I ask them some questions. I look in their throat. I make a diagnosis and a plan. So, doctor interview a patient, architect interview a client, doctor asks some questions, architect asks some questions, doctor make a diagnosis, architect to make a diagnosis, doctor write a plan called the prescription, architect write a plan called an architecture, and the hiring manager was that. So the real key is everything that's on your resume in your past life or that you learned, you're going to have to explain. So what do you want to do? Don't do what I did. Don't study something for 7 years only to say, this is not what I want to do. Kwang, you want to be a solution architect. You completed the certification training program. Okay, so Kwang, I'm going to make it very clear. What's taught in the Certified Solution Architect Associate and Professional is as following. Here's the name of an AWS service, and here's how to configure that service. Why won't that get somebody hired? Well, here's the reason. When I tell somebody, I want you to design a multi-cloud high availability solution, and I say, you need a NoSQL database, what can you use? They say, DynamoDB! And I say, nope, you can't use it, it's multi-cloud. And they're like, but it was in my certification. And I say, somebody, how do you secure your enterprise? And they say, WAF and Shield. And I'm like, you want to be hacked? And they say, huh? I said, enterprise security, what do you need to do? And they go, oh. And here's the problem. This is a certification of the name of a service and how to configure this. But solution architects don't configure. Okay, so they're teaching you somebody else's job. So what does a solution architect need to do? Design, present, and sell. What's covered in certification, how to configure that service. And the name of a proprietary service, which we can't use as architects in most cases anyway. So the problem is you need to learn digital transformation, and that means as following. It means you need to have some executive presence. You need to be able to read a balance sheet, a financial statement, perform some ROI modeling, which means business acumen. And you're going to need to be selling hundreds of millions of dollars of deals, which means you need extremely good sales skills. You're going to be presenting at industry conferences to executives, to engineers, architects, management teams, which means you're going to need a very specific set of presentation skills. Now, architects are going to be responding to RFIs, RFPs, RFQs, et cetera, and you're going to need to know how to do that, which is a very specific set of business and writing skills. Now, when you present, you can say BGP is a path vector routing protocol that uses TCP port 179 for network layer reachability in an interdomain environment. You need to have the executive presence. BGP is a path vector routing protocol that's used for interdomain routing. See, it's a different kind of communication skills that you need to have. And then when you need to speak, you need to be what's called CXO relevant and know what to say to the CEO versus CTO versus the CFO. So that's the business kind of stuff. You'll also be negotiating huge deals, so you're going to need some extremely good negotiation skills. Now on the design side, you need to know networking and data center skills, which means, what do we architects do? We take the stuff from the cloud network and data center to the cloud, which means you need to learn BGP and interior gateway protocols such as OSPF and intermediate systems on the networking side, because the cloud is just a virtual network in a cloud, which means you need to understand IP addressing, subnetting, supernetting, route aggregation, etc. It means you need to know NAT, one-to-one NAT, one-to-many NAT, static NAT, dynamic NAT, so you know how to design it. It means you need to know switching, VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking, spanning tree, rapid spanning tree, etc. What kind of WAN technology do we need to use to the cloud or connect the cloud? Do you need an IPsec tunnel, an SSL tunnel? Do you need a private line? Do you need an Ethernet over MPLS private line, etc., etc.? Do you need software-defined networking or SASE? What is ARP, proxy ARP, DNS, DHCP, and how do you tune these things? Servers and server virtualization, and containers and container orchestration, block storage, file storage, object storage, and not the basic level that's covered in the Certified Solution Architect Professional. How do we design it to optimize the business? What kind of applications will optimize the business? Do we need a CRM application, a unified communications application, an ERP application? What do we need to tune the business? What kind of databases should we use, and how do we make these databases scale? What kind of load balancers do we need? How do we optimize the performance of the load balancer? What kind of security we need? And it's most likely going to be far greater than WAF and Shield. Next generation firewalls, IDS, IPS systems, etc. Those are the skills for the cloud architect. So we've got a 500-hour program, and basically speaking, about 450 hours are not related to certification, they're related to learning the job. Those are the skills you need to learn. You can learn it with us in our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, either the basic or the live, but those are the skills that it takes to get hired. Chris, do you want to go to the next one? Deloitte told me yesterday, 20% technical and 80% business acumen. Can we put him in front of our clients? Yes, that's exactly what they want to know. Can they put the person in front of the client? And can they focus on the business and not the engineering tech for the architect? Now, the architect needs that engineer because that engineer brings to life what we do. They may be the most important person in the room, the cloud engineer, but architects are design, present, and sell, and exactly what Deloitte told you. And I know lots of architects working at Deloitte, they don't touch the technology ever either. And let's get to and after this, I want to get to a very dangerous question from Minan right after this. Honestly speaking, what is the hiring prospects for someone in their late 50s? Excellent, excellent, excellent. I work with lots of people. I recently worked with someone that was in their late 50s. He got a very high-paying enterprise architecture job. But I work with lots of people. The reality is it's easier for me to get someone a job at 50 than it is at 30 because they have more experience, more wisdom, and we can do it either way. Great prospects, great. You mentioned many times that cloud architects do not configure. However, you lead a team. How do we lead them technically if we don't know how to configure? Okay, when you get on an airplane and you want to fly, do you know how the pilot does his job or her job? Of course you don't. If you get a speeding ticket and you need a lawyer, do you tell the lawyer how to do their job? No, of course you don't. If you go to a doctor and need medical care, do you tell the doctor how to prescribe the medication? Of course you don't. You do not need to know somebody else's job. And if you learn their job, here's what's going to happen. You will not be able to get your job. Now, I had some engineers, some architects that did try to get really good at the cloud engineer's job and tried to tell the cloud engineers what to do. They were fired immediately because you don't need them to tell them how to do their job. You need their level of expertise to help you do your job. It's the exact opposite. You're not telling them how to do their job. They're providing the deep, deep, deep technical information you need. Here's the thing. Even as an executive, I got great employees. Could you imagine, Chris? Chris, you can come off mute. Chris, I need you to send an email at 8:01. Chris, at 8:02, I need you to send another email. Chris, I need to make sure you produce this thing today. Chris, I need you to talk to this person at 8:10. Chris, at 8:30, would you do this? How long would you work for me, Chris?
Unfortunately, I've been in that environment before, and not very long.
Yeah.
Not here, but I've been in that environment, and it is not productive.
It's not productive. And I've seen some managers that try to do this, and the good employees leave, and who stays? The people that are disasters. So if I said to Chris, you're an expert at operations. Here's my goal. In 90 days, could you do this? Could you build the strategy? He's going to build the strategy. And he's going to show me the strategy. I'm going to say, thank you, Chris. And then Chris is going to make sure it happens. Why? Because Chris knows a million times more about operations than I do. A million times. Now, as Chris is alluding to, I might say, Chris, I had an idea. Can we abandon that and do this? And that happens all the time. And Chris is trying to get me more disciplined. But that's really the key. That's the key. I don't try to micromanage someone, or I'll lose the most valuable people. You need the engineers. They don't need you.
Yeah, I'd like to chime in additionally here. This is not a career like retail or hospitality where the restaurant manager actually has to know how to do the people's jobs in the restaurant, or the retail manager actually has to know how to do the job of retail associates, sales associates, cashiers, or the hotel manager actually has to know how to clean a room, has to know how to fix a thermostat, has to know how to check somebody in. This is not like that.
Not at all.
These are, as cloud architects, you are a high level professional working with cloud engineers who are also high level professionals. So it's not comparable to other roles where you do have to know those jobs. So that's just, and I'm just sharing that from my experience in other industries. That there's so many industries where you do have to know that, you do have to do like that. But this is not one, because the cloud engineers, some cloud engineers are working more than the cloud architect.
And they generally know more about the tech.
So, but it's two professionals that know their lanes very well. So
exactly. Thanks for adding insight to that, Chris. Mr. Businessman, what's the difference between a principal distinguished architect versus a senior enterprise architect? Now we're getting into semantics. So, Mr. Businessman, at one point, I had a job called Customer Solutions Manager when I was an enterprise architect. And the reason I had that job is they were trying to figure out a way to pay me enough, and they didn't know what to do, so they made up a silly job title. As a rule, in most companies, they either have a principal architect or a distinguished architect in one of those cases. And they're pretty much the same thing. They're the architect that has extreme focused expertise in one area, and they typically are the most emotionally intelligent, executive presence, communication skills, leadership skills, etc., etc. That's typically your principal architect. But they typically are really, really great at one thing. So I am a principal network architect, and I was a principal architect, a principal architect at two different companies. Now, the senior enterprise architect is different. They're really 90% at this point, 80-90% executive and 10 to 20% tech, because they're a director or VP level person. So that's kind of really what we're talking about. So it's a big difference, but it's a great question you asked, Mr. Businessman. Great question. Okay, Chris, I may be able to do one more, and then I don't think we can do any more for the day. And maybe, honestly, you know the schedule better than me. Maybe we can't do it one day, so just guide me.
I thought it was funny. This comment came in right before you called on me.
Chris, I love that. Chris is being awfully quiet today. Yes, he actually was. I'm a network engineer and I get cloud IAA. I need your advice as to what to do next. I have no idea what you want to do, Mohammed, so I can't advise you until I know what you want to do. Meaning your path will be obviously different for a cloud network engineer, regular cloud engineer versus a cloud architect, etc., etc. So I don't have enough information. As an enterprise architect, how do you deal with the innovative ideas for business? Well, I don't have the time to teach that, but you've got to develop extreme levels of business acumen, extreme levels of CXO relevancy, extreme knowledge, and that's exactly the kind of thing that our program is about. Because, realistically speaking, you could do this by taking an MBA and then taking 30 or 40 courses on how to do this, like I did, or you could take our course. But that's exactly the kind of things we teach our architects, because that's the most critical architect skill, enterprise architect or cloud architect. That's exactly what we do. I think as always, Mike, I want to say thank you for all you do. You're sending my Marine buddy to your course. Love everything you do and all the hard work you do inspires me. Cloud Hard, thank you so much. I really, really do appreciate that. Anthony's a brilliant new student of mine. He just joined us, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So let's do this. Let's close on that. But I'll tell Mohammed there's no reason for him ever to do the advanced networking, because it's like an intro to an intro to an intro to an intro level CCNA. We sometimes like to teach the AWS advanced networking for this reason. We use it as an intro to the CCNA, and that way it looks like there's there. But, I wouldn't recommend that if you're a CCNP already. Mike, I have to say you make cloud learning so much fun, and I tune in all the time. I am currently in cloud architect training, but I am supplementing all of it with your free cloud content. Thank you. Well, we are so thankful to have you here. Let us do anything we can to help you. So let me end on 3 things to remind you. Next Thursday, we have a completely free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. Right now, we're finishing, hopefully, the last day of our AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate Bootcamp. And obviously, we go pretty much close to the professional in that from scratch. And that's 12 to 3 today. Please, 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 if you're not getting recruiters hammering your door every single day, if they're not hammering you, I want to interview you. If hiring managers aren't reaching to you, join us for the free 4-hour webinar, not the free, it's not free, but it's as low cost as we can make it. Join us for the 4-hour LinkedIn and resume workshop. And if you want to get your first cloud architect job, your first solution architect job, your first cloud engineer job, or your desire to get promoted in tech, we currently have 30% off of all of our programs right now. So take advantage of the 30% off special and become cloud hired just like so many of my graduates. This is Michael Gibbs. I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Careers. It was an honor to spend the morning with you. I had a ton of fun with you this morning. Take care, everybody, and let's get you all cloud hired.